All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Coach Leppke. He is the defensive coordinator at McPherson. Coach, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Did I get it right? I was
Yes, sir.
I'm so proud of myself. Got
Yes, sir.
it. Well, Coach, thanks for being here. So to start this off, let's talk about you. Like, how did you end up at McPherson? Like, what was the coaching journey? Did you always know
Yeah,
you wanted to be a coach? Like, how did you end up there?
yeah. So this is my alma mater. I've been back here since January 2nd. My career's kind of come full circle, which is fun. I graduated from here in 2013 and was kind of inevitable that I would be back at some point. I coached here for a year after I graduated. I spent 2 years as a GA at Quincy University in Illinois,
Yep.
and then I went to Minnesota State Moorhead and the NSIC. Spent a year at the University of Wyoming, working for Coach Bowl, Scotty Hazelton. Learned more football there in a year than I know what to do with. Then I actually moved back to QU. And I spent the last 3 years at Missouri Southern State in the MIAA in Joplin, Missouri. And the opportunity to come here came up, and my first opportunity to be a play caller is a place I'm obviously very, very familiar with, and it's 30 minutes from my hometown. So it was a no-brainer for me to come home and advance my career by finally getting play caller on my resume. But I get to
Right.
bring my family closer to home, bring my two kids closer to grandma and grandpa. Now we just got to find a house.
Oh, good luck. Good luck
Yeah,
with
it's right now I'm living with the young coaches about a block from campus. So kind of living the office and got Wi-Fi, got movies. It's hard to beat.
Oh, that's all you need, though. That's all you need. Um,
Yeah,
that's quite the journey, kind of been all over the place there. And I'm kind of glad you took a different route than ended back where you went because I tell young coaches, at least from the high school perspective, go coach somewhere else. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to coach my high school and I did. Like I was 18, 19 years old, went back and coached for my head coach. He got let go. And I'm like, what do I do now? Like, what am I supposed to do? So I coached at a different high school. Now I've coached at five, and I realized it's a blessing to coach at different places because you learn different things. And
yeah,
because at my school, it was just one way. Like we ran power I triple option. And I'm like, that's all I know, and that's what I'm gonna do. Then I kind of got
yeah,
out and I'm like, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat and like and all
yeah.
that. So that's a good route you took.
You know, you can. There's always kind of a cliche. You can always go home.
Yeah.
Home's always there, and I thought I would be back here eventually, and now here we are. But I've got a great network of people that I've been lucky to work with, and some great friends shoot everywhere in the country now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to find answers by myself. That's the fun thing for me. If we can't find answers in our staff meeting, I can always give someone a call that I've worked with or gotten to know through all those places and different connections, and that's how your network grows, and that's how you don't have to rely on yourself to figure it out.
Right. Um, have you always coached the defensive side of the ball, or has there ever been
Yeah,
like to the
yeah.
dark
So I
side?
actually was a high school triple option quarterback.
Okay.
Uh, was not blessed with a strong arm by any means. I've been telling recruits this here actually. I got recruited by McPherson College as an athlete. They told me safety or receiver, and with my offensive background, I thought I'm catching passes, I'm running routes and whatnot, and I got a notebook that said safety on it when I walked in the building. The freshmen check in, and haven't looked back since. So that's kind of been the MO. I've coached the back end primarily my entire career so far. I've got a little bit of linebacker experience, tried to get as much special teams experience as I can, but now I'm a defensive guy living in the offensive world.
I was going to say, I love being an offensive guy. It's a lot easier. I don't,
Yeah, I'm sure you feel that way. Hey, we're grinding out tape as long as we can just to make sure we have enough hats for enough gaps.
yeah, because I was always coaching offense. Then when my head coach got let go, I went to a different high school. I went to the head coach. He was just hired. I said, I want to coach, do you have any spots? And he goes, well, what do you want to coach? And I said, offensive line. I'm an offensive guy. And he goes, okay, I'll let you know. Next day, he says, hey, you're going to coach linebackers, the outside linebackers slash safeties, because he was going to run a 4-2-5.
Yeah,
And you're going to be the JV defense play caller and assistant DC with the varsity up in the box. And I said, what?
there you go.
I go, what? He goes, yeah. If you want to get good in this profession at any sort of level whatsoever, you got to know both. So you're going
Yeah,
to do defense. And I hated it at first. I'm like, what am I doing?
right. Yeah, that's kind of coaching in general, though. It's a sink or swim kind of deal, and you got to figure it out. There's always job responsibilities that come up that you don't know what to do, and you either figure out how to work it for yourself and are willing to make mistakes, or you're not. And you got to be willing to get scars in this profession. Everyone's got a lot of stories on things they did poorly when they were young and things they did poorly yesterday, but
Yeah.
those are the things that help you grow and whatnot. I told someone not too long ago, I would rather hear about bad recruiting calls than not making recruiting calls at at
Yeah.
this point. Like
Yeah.
pick up the phone, get scars, understand how to make conversations, understand we've all done things in this profession that we didn't think we would have to do, from equipment to academics to video, and you got to find a way, or the job's not going to get done, and people are going to be mad at you.
Yeah. And then maybe you'll coach football at the end of it. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. When people ask me what coaching's really like and how much time you're on the field, I'm like, well, being on the field is a very, very small percentage of what I do.
Right.
There's a lot of time between talking to the 16 to 23-year-olds, trying to convince them to come to your school. That's a section of it. I've been the video coordinator. I've been in the equipment room. I've been in the weight room. Getting on the field is a treat at the end of a long
Yeah.
day.
Well, that's like your fun time. Like, hey, I can go have fun for 2 hours. Now I gotta get back to the bolt nuts and bolts when I got to go
Yeah,
back inside.
yeah. You gotta lay out your night, and there's always calls to make, and just because you walk off the field and there's film to watch doesn't mean the job's anywhere close to being done. Some nights are longer than others, but you got to be willing to figure it out and be efficient with it. And otherwise, you're chasing ghosts in a lot of different aspects of the profession.
Well, there's also worse jobs. I just watched the documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He goes, I could be in a coal mine right now doing this stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess that's true.
Yeah, yeah. I I've joked that I haven't worked a day in my life. This is the best job I've ever had. It's the only job that I've ever had. But I don't want a real job. I'm just a kid with a ball and a dream, and I get to coach football and talk to awesome people every single day, and it's taken me all over the region. So that's been really fun for me.
This might be a dumb question, but I'm friends with Coach Nick Davis. He's at
Yep.
Ottawa now. He I asked him this a couple years ago. He was at Rose Holman. He had to cut his teeth too. He lived off of food stamps. He did whatever he had to do to like
Yeah.
break through. And when he got the DC job at Rose Holman, he's like, I finally broke through, and now he's a head coach now. And I asked him this. I said, do you feel like there's people out there that obviously are going to do what you did and what he did, like you're going to go all over. Do you feel like maybe there might be some out there that, since we live in an instant gratification type of world, they're not necessarily going to cut their teeth that way. They want it now because we're seeing less high school coaches. And
Right.
that's part of the reason. There's many more reasons outside of that. Do you feel like that's kind of a thing, or is there still exactly people like you guys?
I think there's people out there that are willing to do it. There's no right way to make it in this profession, but I also think there's people that are overwhelmed when they get into the profession
Mhm.
of I am making I'm losing money at certain jobs, and I've looked at checks that you look at and go, I'm going to go out to eat tonight, and this check's going to be gone before I can sit at the table.
Yeah,
And that's overwhelming, and with the amount of work that comes with it, and all the different hats you got to wear, that scares people out of it. They don't see the
yeah,
light at the end of the tunnel. And honestly, for me, the more I get into the profession, the light at the end of the tunnel is always there. You're always chasing it, because you're always, to me, if you're not in a growth mindset in this profession, you're not going to make it. And
right,
that's what people have to be willing to do. And if they're not willing to see the forest of the trees, they're not going to make it very long. They got to be willing to pay the price. And some people don't have to pay the same price. Some people have to chase it forever and never make it where they want to make it. You just have to find your own path and carve it out how you see fit.
right. Because like I don't know if this will relate at all. Was it a year or two ago we lost four coaches when the season was over?
Yeah,
It took the head coach up until like July, almost end of July, to fill everything.
yeah,
And that's just high school, but I mean it's different. But
yeah,
it it was a number of factors. It was, well, I want to be paid. And he goes, okay, well, I have stipends. Have you ever coached before? Like, well, I've done a year. And he goes, well, do I pay you? Do I not pay you? Whatever. Oh, well, I want to call plays for varsity or JV. He goes, well, wait a minute. Like, I have a lot of people here on staff that could do that. You're brand new. Like, that's not going to happen.
yeah,
And they get frustrated. Or like the head coach that told me to coach defense. Now I did it. I complained for a little bit. Then I started to realize what he was doing. some people when they were like, well, I want to coach quarterbacks. And he goes, no, you may have to do like corners.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And then that's it.
I've been through fall camps where I've had a new person sharing the back end with me that I've had to teach them the install before I install it to the kids. And some people are trying to figure out as they go and willing to admit that they don't understand it and point the kids to someone else that knows what's going on, which I actually appreciate at this point. I'd rather people tell me they don't know than to try to make something up on the spot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
other people are frustrated by it. They want to read notes off of PowerPoint and think that's good enough. Like, man, kids aren't dumb. They'll see right through it if you're just reading off the notes. Like these kids need to be taught. They need to
Yeah.
they need to know that you don't know. That's okay. Point them to people that do, and just figure it out as we go and coach it fast, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. And a coach just told me this the other day. He's like, we can have all this stuff, but if you go out there with a 30 PowerPoint presentation, you're going to lose them. Like you have
Yep.
to be clear, concise, show your human side. I tell the high school players, like in basketball right now, we lost a game, and I straight up told them, like, before I talk about anything, here's what I did wrong. Like I could have done this, I
Yeah.
could have done this, I could have done this. Then I go into now as a team, we could have done this. So I always show them, like, I take responsibility for what I could have done different. I've never done anything perfect.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
like,
And I think kids appreciate that. They like to know that you're in this together
yeah,
at the end of the day. But you also, as a teacher, I learned this from Steve Lockway at Minnesota State Moorhead. He kind of categorized kids in two different areas. You have tactical learners, you have battlefield learners. There's guys that can take this meeting and the X's and O's presentation, just look at you on the board and go, okay, cool. I got that, and go out and execute it flawlessly. There's other guys that need 1,000 reps, but you have to find unique ways to reach everybody in your meeting, to reach different people on the field, to go execute. Everyone needs to find value in both of those things at one point or another.
right. Um, you taking over as a play caller when you're coming in, you obviously have to do what the head coach wants. He has a culture, he has everything else. But when you
Yeah,
come into like your room, when you come in, like, what's your culture? What's your standard? How are you going to get them to buy in to what you're going
yeah.
to do?
The scheme is the scheme. Right now we're in what we call interterm, so our guys are taking a 3-hour class this month, and we'll have. I'm looking at the date here in the bottom. Next week, our mid-year transfers show up
Hmm.
for the first time, and that's when our true off-season program will begin. So for me, I've kind of been just seeing what our guys are, watching them move around a little bit, seeing guys move weights, and just trying to put faces to names and body types and positions and whatnot. And what I'm starting to tell the guys is we'll figure out the scheme as we go. I have an idea of what I want to be. I mean, it's the same defense I played in here in 2009 as a freshman, how it's evolved. I've been lucky to coach in this defense for a long, long time, but I have to see what we're good at to ultimately to make that decision. Like we'll figure out if we can be a middle closed team, a middle open team, for a quarters team. Can I put 4 hands on the ground? Is there going to be 3 hands on the ground? That's all to be determined. But one thing I can tell the guys what we're going to do is we're going to run to the football better than everybody. If we can get 2 people to the ball, 3 people to the ball, that's what we'll hang our hat on, because the scheme will figure itself out. Our effort has to make us different. We were a little bit grimy when I played here, and
Hmm.
that's kind of some of the traits that my friends have been messaging me, going, "Hey, we got to get back to seeing some of that grimy bulldog defense that we've seen. Those guys that just fly. We're not the most talented, but it hurts to play us. We got to beat teams twice with how hard we play and the relentless mentality." So that's the thing for me that guys got to be willing to commit to first, and the scheme will be the scheme once we figure out what we can and can't do.
What division are you guys?
We are NAIA, so we're in that same
Okay.
conference as
Yeah.
Ottawa. Nick and I have gotten to know each other a touch over the years, and as an alum, I've always followed this league and
Yeah.
kind of got friends placed all over it now. So it's been fun to see the league change, and some familiar faces that I've met through other schools we've been at show up in the league. So the world's gotten small really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it has. Um, with being NAIA, it's obviously similar and different from the NCAA. What does recruiting look like when it comes to NAIA, and especially with the transfer portal world? Like,
Yeah,
and what does that look like?
yeah. So for me, being in the MIAA the last 3 years, it's very, very different. The MIAA is as close to Division I football as it gets. You're
Right.
trying if you don't have FCS to even FBS skill sets and certain aspects of your game, it's hard to put you on the recruiting board in that league. That league's different. It's a grown man's league is what I tell people.
Right.
While this level of football, everyone kind of knows the schools are not necessarily the cheapest. You still want to find high quality student athletes. You're not always going to have the measurables, but what traits do you have that set you apart from your average guy who wants to put on a helmet and be a part of the program? Can you run? Are you willing to put your face on people? Do you have ball skills, but you might be 5'5"? So that some of those things in itself, it's lended itself to be more of a national recruiting base. There's not necessarily an area you can commit to and whatnot because you've got to search high and wide to find as many people that are willing to come essentially pay to play
Hmm.
to put it simply, but want to play too and define your numbers and whatnot. Because I'm just like every other coach in the country. I'd like to get longer at every single position, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to sacrifice someone who's long but can't run. That long guy can't bend, but there's some 5'9" DN that can put his hand on the ground and turn the corner and find a way to get you 8 sacks. By all means, you got to find him a home. There's no right way to do it, and especially with small school football, you have to make sure everyone's best traits are evaluated.
Yeah. Does the transfer portal affect NAIA as much as like NCAA or I don't even
I
know.
haven't seen it from our example, like if potentially of guys wanting to move up. To me, you still as a coach, you want guys there for 4 years. You're still small school football to me is also becoming the last line of developmental football there is.
Hmm.
Because it's it is what it is. Guys are at NAI typically for a reason, and you're
Right.
trying to develop a program to see what those guys can really be 4 years from now. Transfer portal wise, at least in my previous experience as Division II, there's not enough homes for everybody that wants to go Division I. So
Right.
there's a bigger trickle down effect than people realize. You can find high level football players that haven't found a home for a year or two that are still wanting to play, and you got to be willing to dig through archives, talk to everybody, and for me at the small school level, if I recognize, hey, this is a 5-star kid that's leaving Power 5 university, he's going to have everything under the sun. I'm not reaching out to him. But if I don't recognize the name, even though it's a name brand school, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch the tape and make sure the movement skills fit and see if he follows me back on Twitter and see if I can get him on the phone and where he's at. You gotta get a lot of no's before you can get someone to say yes, and that's okay.
Yeah. Because from talking to people and looking like Division III, NAIA or things like that, those kids may love the sport more than maybe the Division I. If
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like I don't know if you've seen that. I definitely have. Our head coach played at North Central College, and
yeah.
he was like, I loved the sport so much. I was paying to play, but it was at a good program, but I
Oh,
loved it so
absolutely.
much.
I loved my experience here. I wouldn't have gotten the opportunities I've gotten in coaching without it. And that to me is part of why it was so exciting to come home. And it's so exciting for me to recruit people to come to McPherson College too, to hope they have some sort of the same experience that I had here as a player and to be afforded some of the same opportunities, whatever field they choose as a result of coming here. So that's fun for me for that personal experience, but also guys, it's still college football. Like there's 22 college football players on the field. You may be
Yeah.
the only one that you play against on a Friday night for the next 4 weeks. And there's going to be guys that have played big time football from Texas here. There's going to be guys that are playing 6-man football in Kansas here, and you got to still develop a team just like anybody else and recruit a team to fill your needs, to be competitive, and to put yourself in a position to win games and to accomplish the things you want to culturally.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. Culture is a buzzword. I think it's more of, I don't even know what to call it. I just call it standard. I don't know
Yeah,
what else to call it. Uh,
yeah. Like everyone's standard's different. If we all had the same standard and culture and beliefs, football would be very, very boring. Uh,
yes.
but it's fun. It's fun for me now. The older I get, like when you're young, you're moving around. You're just trying to find advance, and then all of a sudden you're married. Well, is this good for us too? And then now I've moved with one child. Now I'm moving with two children. What's good for us? Plus, on top of that, career for me to make sure I find the right fit for not only my family, but the right fit for me professionally too. So everything's got to be in line with that.
Right.
I've been a part of places you don't necessarily see eye to eye, and then you're checking the scoop, kind of going, man, I don't know, and
Right.
whatnot. And you want to make sure you're at a place where you believe in what the head coach believes, and that way you can kind of see the vision through, and it's much easier to go recruit that way.
Right. And sometimes you learn more from the bad things or the not to do things more
Yeah,
than to do things.
yeah, absolutely. And it's no different. You got to coach guys when they mess up. You got to coach guys when they do things right. You want to understand why. To me, is the important part of those things. Why it was hard for me when I was just starting to understand why I didn't like certain things in the
Yeah.
profession and whatnot until I got around someone that was more in line with what I ultimately believe in now.
Right.
And then you kind of get to a point where, okay, for me at least, I believe in this. This is what I want to do. But now I think I can see a gap in how we're doing it. Do I can I finish that gap here? Or do I have to go somewhere else to continue to grow? And is that going to help fill in those gaps for me too? Because you're always trying to grow and move professionally, schematically, culturally, which is personally as much as anything to find things that you're in line with and how you want to do it. And that chase never ends. You just try to get closer and closer to that a little every single day.
Right. Um, what have you learned from the different places that you're going to bring with you for like your standard, your culture? Like I know you're at your school and they have their way of doing things, but like was there anything
Yeah,
you took from those other places that you're going to try to implement there?
yeah. For me, I'm a fairly simple guy to get along with. Guys that are humble and hungry and want to work hard and love football. Those are the guys I'm looking for. You know, guys that want to be a part of something flashy, that want to try on every single uniform combination, that want that glitz and glam photo shoot, and that want the glitz and glam of running out in front of 8,000 people or whatnot. This might not necessarily be the place for you, and that's okay. Um, for me, the thing I'll probably take from every place the most is there's a right fit, and if
Hmm.
you don't fit here, that's okay. Like, don't settle. What's good for you might not be what's good for me, and vice versa. I'm going to work hard to find the right fit, and my job is not necessarily to convince people to come where I'm at. My job is to help them make a good decision for them, and that's honestly it. Because I've been to private schools, state schools, and you got to make sure people understand the full experience they're getting into. It's a 4 to 5 year decision. Don't just have a good official visit and believe that's where you need to get to. Know what good days look like, bad days look like, and everything in the middle, because you're not going to be happy where you are every single day. But do you understand the mission? Do you understand the people you're with? And are those people that you want to go to work with every single day? So
Yeah, because some of the coaches at the other levels, they told me that some of those things are not on a priority list anymore for players because of how the world is, the transfer portal, the name,
yeah,
image, and likeness. It's not. One coach told me he goes, "I'm on campus way more than ever before because you're bringing people in, but now
yeah,
they're coming in saying how much am I going to get paid? They're not worried about all the coaches. They're not worried about maybe all the players. They're not worried about the
yeah.
school. Like, what are you going to do for me?" Type of.
I think that level, the major NIL concerns and whatnot, that's such a small percentage of the rest of college football.
Mhm.
Everyone knows about it because it's what's all over social media
Yep.
now. And I jokingly say it, the worst thing that happened was when you could slap your name on the back of your jersey on Madden and NCAA, and everyone thought they became that
Yeah.
automatically. That's just not real for everybody, and that's okay. We all have to. If you really want to play football, you're gonna either A, pay to play, or B, you're gonna be just good enough to get part of most of, if not all, your school paid for. Most of us are gonna work real jobs,
Hmm.
find the right education wise. You can get a good degree a lot of different places, but the people you're with, the experience you want to have, that's what you really have to seek out. Just because you're good doesn't mean you're going to fit here, and that's fine. There's a lot of really good players out there. Go somewhere where you're going to fit with the people, with the coaches that when you get yelled at, that person loves you, is going to hold you accountable for a reason. You don't got to like it every single day, but you got to know that the people have your back. And guys at this small school level that transfer out, they settle to me. They don't check
Hmm.
off all the boxes. Um, Maybe because they're exploring some of those things that are quote the wrong things for smaller school football,
Right.
and they got to do their process what's good for them.
Right. No, that's why I love talking to college coaches to get the real of what's going on with it. And even though some of those coaches tell me that, yeah, some may have a bad experience. One coach I talked to, he's like, I lost three offensive linemen. It took me a long time to plug it in. But he's like, it's not as bad as it's being said. And I laughed and I'm like, that's why I can't trust ESPN and all of them anymore.
Yeah,
That's all it says.
yeah. I trust me. I tell guys from here to the other Division twos I've been at, like, look, man, if Dre Beats thinks you're worth $6 million, they'll find you.
Yes. Yes.
They'll find you. Like, I can't remember the kicker's name anymore that played for Central Florida back in the day, who was trying to monetize YouTube,
Oh,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
was one of the poster children of name, image, and likeness that chose that route over a scholarship at the time. But
Right.
now you can do both. Guys can do that in their dorm room. Like, I'm all for name, image, and likeness. I really, really am. The free market will do what it's supposed to do. Guys just need to be realistic about, am I Caleb Williams, who's getting all that money and whatnot? Am I really that? So
Right.
self-awareness is a big trait that people need to honestly think about when they ask some of those things, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because and we can't trust what we seen. Oh, this guy got all this money. Did he really get all that money? Or are they just saying
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Like, for me, self-awareness started as a senior in high school. I could go the junior college route. Everyone's told me that's how you go Division 1 when you're not a Division 1 player right now. But I kind of looked at it and go, I'm probably an NAIA athlete no matter what. So why
Mhm.
would I consider that route anyways? Um, sure, it might be cheaper for my gen ed credits, but am I going to make it out of junior college football in 2 years? I don't know. Will I
Right.
have the tape to get re-recruited again? Those are all internal conversations that I had to have with myself. I wanted to continue my career. If guys are going to get crazy NIL money, it's going to find them. They're not going to have to go seek it out.
Yeah. Or the podcast I just did, we were talking about multi-sport athletes and, travel baseball has become a huge thing and it's starting to become maybe not as big as I'm saying it is, but like kids are stopping football or stopping this to specialize in a sport.
Yeah,
And my comment always was, well, their comments are, well, this is how we're going to get recruited and we're going to get big time. And I said, well, if you were big time, they would have found you by now,
yeah,
like, and this coach just told me, he goes, I know coaches that have coached Division 1 baseball and they'll tell me, yeah, okay, you play travel baseball, cool, but I'm not requesting travel baseball stats. I'm looking at other things. I'm doing this. And
yeah. It's kind of a 7-on-7 thing with football now. I'm all for guys getting the movement skill, working on fundamentals and whatnot. I prefer that they do it with their high school team because then they're learning their calls for their season and
right,
whatnot. COVID's really the only time I watched 7-on-7 tape, when I was evaluating senior film of guys that weren't going to have a senior season, because you got to see a little bit of growth
right.
there. That guy's finally got to put on tape, but you still got to put on pads at the end of the day. I like seeing guys run, but are those arms just as long when there's a safety across the middle of the field as there is when there's just some guy who's trying to put a tag on you?
Yeah.
It's not the same game.
No. Well, then I always tell them it helps you get recruited too. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like I know people that got recruited from just the coach watching them play a different sport. Like they went and watched that other sport outside what
Yeah,
they were doing. And they go, oh, look at this kid competing. Or look at his hand eye coordination here. Like this solidifies what we thought. And we're going to offer
yeah,
him partial scholarship. We're going to offer him whatever, you
yeah.
know?
I Our top defensive end a year ago where I was at was primarily a basketball player until his senior year. He played good football as a senior, but he was a freak on the basketball court and whatnot.
Mhm.
And we thought that showed more of his potential, what he could grow into be, than him learning how to play football, him truly learning how to play football as a senior. Again, trying to project a guy 2-3 years from now what he can be, which is hard to do. But you're watching this guy on the basketball court, going, man, if he can put his foot in the ground, coming off the edge like he can, get into the lane and dunking on somebody,
Yeah.
he's going to be a really good defensive end. You got to be willing to be a guy who can still see 2 to 3 years into the future of guys at small school football, because there's a lot of developing that still has to happen for someone who's 17 years old when you sign them and doesn't show up they're 18. Their best football is still going to be when they're 20, 21, 22,
Yeah,
23, not when they're 19 years old, 18 years old, the Division two NAIA football very often. Their best football is still out there.
right. And this didn't happen to me, but a school we played basketball against, I knew their left tackle was getting recruited. He was big. He was like 6'6" or whatever, big kid. We played him in basketball, and the warm-ups are happening. I'm looking around and I see these guys, these three guys up there with clipboards are sitting up there, and I'm like, I wonder
Yeah,
who they're recruiting for basketball. Well, then I realized it was Western Illinois football coaches
yeah,
there to look at that kid. And I tell the kid, and I remember telling one of the kids, "Oh, that's Western Illinois up there," and they go, "Football play," and but we're in basketball. I'm like, "Yeah, this is how this works." They saw the football film. They probably watched a game. Now they're going to watch them play basketball.
you get to see the movement skill. You get to
Do
see
you see?
different.
Sorry, do you see this?
Yeah, I do.
I apologize. I don't know what that is. That's not me doing it. I
I
apologize.
figured out how to do that on FaceTime. My daughter loves it.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. By funny story, podcast for like the last month. I've seen that, and I just assume the other person doesn't see it because they never said anything. When my buddies was on here, that happened. He goes, "Steve, what did you just do?" And I'm like, "You can see that?" And he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Shit." That means these
Yeah,
college coaches probably thought I was clicking on something.
I accidentally did it on FaceTime with my 3-year-old daughter the other night, and I had to Google other things you could do with hand gestures and whatnot. So she gets a kick out of that. And Dad, make the hearts again. Make the hearts.
Like, I don't even know how I did it the first time.
That's a lot of my technology experiences. Oh, how'd I do that? Go
Yeah.
back, fix
Okay.
it.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I just saw
No,
that.
that's okay. But I like going to watch basketball games. I really enjoyed when I was in Minnesota, getting to go watch some hockey games. That was a different
Oh,
culture
yeah.
experience. Athletically, I had no idea how to eval it because you're on ice and it's a completely different movement skill.
Yeah.
But it was just fun to watch guys go compete, and you can still see who hit a little bit in hockey. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But you get to put a face to the competition. Then like it's just different. It's always fun to see guys move and compete because you want competitors in everything they do. Guys that just want to compete on Friday nights that don't compete on a random Friday night in January. What are we doing? Guys want to win all the time. Let's
Right.
let's make sure that person fits the mold and everything we're looking for.
Right. And then just from my standpoint, I tell kids it's a mental thing too. Like, it's good to stop doing football and do something else while you're in high school. Now when you get to college, obviously it's like a
Yeah,
job, but
yeah.
mentally,
There's been some kids I've snuck up in there just to see if they see me, and all of a sudden they can handle the pressure. The pressure's on. Oh, coach is there to watch me and
yeah,
whatnot. Others I've joked, hey man, if I don't see you dunk on somebody tonight, I'm pulling that offer and I'm walking out the door. I'm not even gonna know. I got you. And to see if someone will rise up a little bit.
yeah,
It's always fun to see kids do something else that's maybe not necessarily in their comfort zone, like a football field for me,
right.
to watch them be competitive and whatnot. And another aspect, how they interact with their teammates, those are always things you can look at.
Yeah. And I always tell the kids, like, these coaches, if they recruit, they're going to ask, obviously, athleticism, but like, what type of person are you? What's their grades like? Do they show up to weights? Oh, you
Yep.
say no to any of those? Thanks, coach. And they're
Yeah.
done.
And I'm tired of chasing guys to class. In
Yeah.
my life, I've done it. When I was young, I could spend more time out of the office chasing guys to class than I did actually get my job done. And that's why you're in the office till late at night, because you got to go do some of those things. The more you can try to secure some of those things before they get to campus and thorough you can be, the better you should, in theory, be on Saturdays, because you're finding the right athletic fit. Because you wouldn't, let's be honest, that's what starts the conversation, and then you got to evaluate the character on the second part of the recruiting evaluation. Yes, he's good enough to play. Is he the right fit?
Yeah. Because you're not going to waste your time. Like you said, there's thousands of football players out there,
Yep.
thousands, and you can find
Yep.
that person.
Yep.
Like,
Guys that allow me just to do my job versus always be coming across my desk for the wrong reason. Those those are the ones we all want. Those are the guys that end up with 35 offers on Twitter, not just because they can run, but guys are doing their homework on them too. Like, coach, this kid crosses off all the boxes. He's everything he was an athlete. Secretaries love him. He's a part of this. He's a part of this. He's a captain. Sign us up.
right, right. And I told Nick this. I wish NAIA got more love, or maybe I just don't see it enough. You just see the NCAA ones, but I'm like, NAIA is still like great football. Like
Yeah,
it's still great football. And
it's still college football.
yeah,
That's what I have to tell people and whatnot. Like it was not my dream to play NAIA football. I have no issues telling people that. You don't dream of playing at this level. You dream of playing in front of thousands and thousands of people, just like everybody else do. But
right.
then if your dream is not just to play football at a certain point, just go to school. My
Mhm.
dream became to play college football. McPherson College was the only thing that mattered to me on Saturdays for 4 straight years. I didn't care if my favorite team growing up, Kansas State, won or lost. As long as the Bulldogs won, I was a happy man.
Right.
I played with guys that were Power Five bounce backs here back in the day. I played with guys that were backing up 5 stars that were studs that got recruited off warm ups and special teams tape. I
Hmm.
played with guys that stood on the sidelines that just were happy to be a part of the team and wanted that experience. I
Yeah.
got it all. But I showed up to campus and then my locker was between two guys. I looked up and did this too and went, man, I'm never going to play. I better figure this out. I better figure this out or I'm not going to make it. I better put my nose down and work a little bit.
Let's see, I had the opposite. I had a similar. Went to walk on and 6'5", 275. I walked in. I'm like, I played offense tackle in high school, and they're like, you're too small. Like this
Yeah,
kid is 6'7", 305. And I'm like, oh. And they're like,
yeah,
oh, you could be a tight end though. And I'm like, you mean I have to run? I have to. I hate running. You're gonna make me run. And
yeah,
then you get laid out a couple times, and then maybe I'm like, that's maybe the same for me.
yeah,
And but then I turn to coaching. I don't just quit the sport. I find a different way to do it. And that's why
yeah,
I was 18, 19 years old coaching football. And now I'm 33, been doing it ever since. Like it's just been
yeah.
nonstop.
Like my welcome to college football moment. You're partnering up the first day. I mean, everyone has a welcome to football moment, no matter what level they end their career on. Everyone kind of remember that first time they went, okay, maybe I'm not as bad a dude as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Like, I remember pairing myself with this transfer here at McPherson College, who's probably the best safety that's ever come through here. He hit me so hard in a thud tackle drill. I'm just walking to the next station going, what happened?
Yeah.
What just hit me and
Yeah.
whatnot? And then the next day we're trying to pair up again. He points at me like, "Hey, we did this yesterday." I'm like, "No, I'm with this guy over here. I gotta figure this out."
Yeah. I don't think that was me with you. I think I'm over here.
No, no, yeah, the other short guy.
Yeah. That
So
happened to
man,
me. That happened to me on like a camp visit. It was one of those where you could tell who they were recruiting. Like there was these 10 kids they knew by name. The
yeah,
rest of us, they just called us by the color of our jersey. So we were purple. Hey, I was big purple. Hey, big purple, your turn. Like they didn't care. Kid from
yeah,
Florida, defensive end, took me for a ride. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's football players outside of the state of Illinois. I'm like, oh, yeah.
yeah. That's kind of what happened to me going into my senior year of high school and deciding what I was going to do and whatnot. Is I was That was just as the national recruiting everything online in
Yeah.
my age, I was starting
Yeah.
to follow it for the first time. Grew up a Kansas State fan, and I'm seeing who all they're recruiting, going, okay, I'm going to be on this list eventually. I'm going to be on this list. I got to go to this camp. So I went to their camp, and I'm watching the groups get divided up, and I'm recognizing the names and the people going this way. I'm okay. Those guys are actually with the quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
I don't know who's over there with them, but so it was James Franklin was on staff
Uh,
at Kansas State
yeah.
with Ron Prince at the time. He was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, I believe. So I watched everyone run over there with him. I watched a bunch of other guys run over with Scott Frost, who was a
Hmm.
GA at K State on that staff. And they called my name, and I go off with this guy, and I'm going, I recognize those people. That guy's in a K State shirt. Who is this coaching me today? I'm not getting recruited by this school.
Yeah. Yeah. That all that stuff was an eye opener as a high schooler. Then starting coach, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like at the
Yeah,
time, you're like, I could get recruited or I could do this, and you're like, oh, wait a minute,
yeah.
like,
No, they're ahead of the game for a reason. They're with those people on those camps for a reason. There's a reason why they go back in between drills and whatnot. Everyone kind of looks at their notes and goes back out. I've done
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I know that now.
yeah. And that's why I tried. Like some of our kids are like, hey, I want to go to this camp, and a part of me is like, are you paying for it? And they're like, well, yeah, I have to pay for it. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not telling you not to, but I'm about to tell you what's about to happen. Like
Yeah,
you're gonna go, you're gonna have fun, you're gonna learn something, but you may not be with the actual wide receivers coach. You're gonna be with no offense to GAs, obviously, but you're going to go be with this GA that's going to take you. They're not going
yep,
to look at you unless you just blow them out of the water, you know?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want your hopes and dreams to be dashed what you're about to do. Like, go do it, have fun. It's an experience, love it. Make sure you're not paying $1,000 for it though. Like, don't be doing that.
Yeah,
Oh, coach,
absolutely.
it's $100. All right, go.
Like there's some of the Division twos I've been at. You're on that fringe of could this guy go Division two or FCS as a
Yeah.
junior? And I tell some of those kids like go to those camps twice. If year one, if you're going to the Chicagoland Showcase, for example, if you go to
Yeah.
that your first time and you're not mentally ready for it, it's going to overwhelm you.
Hmm.
There are 1,300 kids going through a session or however many they shove through there now. And if you're not mentally ready to see all those people, all those coaches and whatnot, you're not going to perform. So go once when you're young, go once when you're about to hit that threshold of am I really going to get recruited to play at that level, and see if you got it. And then after those camps, let's be honest about our numbers and where I stand, who came to talk to me, and who am I actively having conversations with at that point, and
Hmm.
let's go from there. And then as they reach back out, week four, I'm like, okay, these coaches aren't talking to you at these higher levels. When was the last time you heard from them? Okay, 2, 3 weeks ago. Reach back out, see where you're at. You can get an honest answer. They might just tell you no. You might not get a message back. You'd rather to get told no than keep waiting for something that's not there. Then
Right.
we'll have a conversation if you don't like what you hear. All right.
Right.
Or they're aware enough at that point to go, okay, I'm not a FCS guy or a Division One guy anymore. And coach, let's have a conversation. Cool. Let's
Yeah.
go.
But that's why I love making connections with this podcast because it's been Division 1, FCS, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. And so
Yeah.
at least for me personally, I tell the kids like you may not want to play college ball, but there's options for you if you actually they'll find you. But like
Yeah.
if you want to go find it, there is so many options outside of 1 through 3. There's NAIA, there's junior college. Like there are
Yep.
places you've never heard of, but there's places if you really want to do it.
Yeah. If you really want to play, there's a home for you. You know,
Yeah.
and like we said from the beginning, football's still football. It doesn't matter what level it is. Um, our standards here and the hours guys put in here, it's no different than if you're playing at a big school.
Right.
And you got to put in the work in the weight room. You got to put in the work in the film room. For me, the install's the same. Doesn't matter if I'm coaching at an FBS school. Doesn't matter if I'm coaching here. The picture looks the same as when you put it up on the TV for everybody to see. They're going to see and hear the information the same. The standard of good defense is still defined the same at this level as this is Power Five football. So
Yeah.
you can go put really good football on tape and say our defense is better than XYZ school that you're seeing on ESPN. Statistically, there might be more NFL players running around at Illinois than there is at
Yeah.
McPherson College, and that's fine. But go play football and put good football on tape, and that means something.
Right. And like you said, you could put your stats up. I know, like, I keep going back to Nick, and I don't mean to. Like, they put up great things this year, and he could
Yeah,
match it with everybody. He could look at division or FCS and stuff and be like, look, we matched the numbers.
yeah, absolutely. It's football. Football is all relative. I say this like football is designed for us all to go 5-5, and you put in the work and you put in the right people in the program. You hit your thing, do your things just right. Those are the teams that separate themselves, the guys that go above and beyond. Everyone does the average work, gets average results. Everyone that just does below average work
Hmm. Yeah.
doesn't grow. Doesn't their record doesn't show it at the end of the year.
Right.
We're all given the same opportunity. What do you do with it? And some of us have great resources to help facilitate that. Some of us have to figure out how to make what we have work for the best of us because you're still expected to win.
Right. Um, Another dumb question. So I always ask defense coordinators this sometimes. Is there a true like we are this defense, or is every defense multiple because people hop into their even man front, their odd man fronts? Like it's just like offense. Like, oh my God, they're in 21 personnel. Now they're in 10. Like there's real no true
Yeah,
system identity.
yeah. I think you have to be able to be multiple. Um, there's otherwise people can manipulate you into being in certain looks in certain situations. In
Yeah.
my opinion, so being able to be multiple gives you maybe one or two more answers that they haven't seen as much of or expect they'll get.
Right.
So you have to be able to do different things. You're always going to have things that you can major in and be good at, and things you can minor in that are going to be your changeups and whatnot. There is no system of the week going in. odd man stuff, your 4-man stuff, all has to be built within the same rules and foundations so your guys can go execute fast. But it is a wrinkle and whatnot.
Right.
How can you be different? What can you make people spend a little more time on for you that they might not normally do on a red zone day? How am I different in the red zone compared to the rest of the league? How am I different in the backed up situation compared to the rest of the league? Where can I make people spend more time on me than the rest of the league shows? Like that's been for me since I got here is what does the league do on defense? How does what I want to do compare on defense
Mhm.
to everybody as a whole? And what will people do against us when they see it's something similar to other people in the league? Like
Right.
that's been my challenge this last few weeks outside of recruiting is like I said, my family's not here yet. So when I put the kids to bed on the phone this time of night, I'm watching ball. I'm just seeing what people did last year and what there is out there that looks like what I think will be and what people's answers are and trying to get an idea of how to prepare us schematically for the spring to be ready to go in the fall. Like what these are the things that we'll need to carry, at least in my opinion right now, to be successful when we get to whenever our first game is, August 31st or something like that. I haven't gotten that far. One
And
day
then,
at a time right now. Very much
oh
one day
yeah,
at a time in my life.
oh yeah, you got to. Because I also see defensive coordinators, because you guys are super smart. It's almost like sometimes you guys out formation the offense. Like you could call the
Yeah,
same defense 6 times in a row, but if you have a tag to line up different or move, like
yeah,
it messes with them.
yeah. I joke, I jokingly say it. It's like I'm just a simple defensive guy. I can handle a few things as long as we can line up those things and execute. We'll keep the ball in front of us. There's no call sheet that's 75 plays for a 75 play offensive game.
Right. Right.
No one can line up and play that fast, but we're going to carry a few things every week in the field. That'll be our base and whatnot. You'll have your situational stuff that'll throw in some wrinkles. We're going to line up with those calls and play fast. They might get you on one, but let's survive the down and get back to a situation where we can keep the ball in front of us again. How do we bleed coordinators off their call sheet where they're impatient? And now we can be the aggressor.
Right. And again, correct me. I tell people this, like if I watch NFL or college, it used to be like when you hold people to 0 points, that was like the norm. And then the more it's
Yeah,
become an offensive world, it's like you can't lose your cool over this team getting a first down. It's like,
yeah,
okay, how can you correct what you just did? Did you miss a tackle? Did you not
yeah,
line up right? Like, I know as a coach, we get mad, like, how could you blah blah. But I think you
yeah.
have to evolve and be like, okay, I'm not okay with it, but we have to accept it more. Like back in the day, like that was not a thing. It was
Right,
like 0-0-0. Well, a team just scored
right.
21 points. Okay, we're doing okay though. That's still just giving up less than a touchdown a quarter. Like they haven't
Yeah.
that type of thing.
I think there's different metrics people can look at. When I was at Minnesota State Moorhead, the one we looked at was points per drive. I can't remember what it was exactly anymore, but they had it down to if we can be within this window of points per drive, we should project to win
Yeah,
six to 8 games based on the league numbers the last 3 years because they played fast on offense. So you were going to see
yeah,
more possessions on defense. So it wasn't necessarily how many points you were giving up; it was how many points per drive were we actually giving up. That was the real metric
right,
that they wanted to look at and whatnot. So like there's those things. I think there's some defenses out there that are more designed to stop yards than points, and that's a dangerous world to me. At the end of the day, as long as there's more points on our side, I'm a
yeah,
happy guy. I want to stop points, not yards. So
yeah,
some of the yards per game things for me have gone out the window. How are we limiting them to field goals? How are we forcing them to punt in backed up situations where it's now our offense is playing from the -40 instead of the -15 because we're getting them
right,
off the field 20 yards earlier than other people.
right. I'm glad you said the yards thing because that was another thing. Like we have to hold them to 100 yards or 200 yards. Well,
Yeah,
what now is defense? That's why ESPN. If a defense gives up 400 yards, but they win the game, they still say, well, but they're giving up 400 yards. But then, and as a coach, you're like, yeah, we don't like that, but did we win the game? Did we make
yeah.
enough? Did we win these 10 plays that we had to win?
How many plays were there in that game to give up 400 yards? How many of those 400 yards came from explosive plays and
Right,
whatnot? Again, I've been on the right and wrong side of bad games on all of those metrics at one point or another. Like, there's no great way to quantify a great defense outside of your margin of victory is better than everybody else's as the year goes on, and you're making people earn everything they get against you. In my opinion, if you can do that, I think you'll be really happy with how the numbers look at the end of the year. But the win and loss column is the thing I think people need to focus on more.
Right. It's no more the 85 Bears defense
Yeah,
stuff. No.
yeah, and Michigan's a great example of what having the best talent in the world at
Yeah.
that level looks like. I think they gave up 11, 10 points a game or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And then you go look at some of the old North Dakota State defenses, what they did statistically is still outstanding and whatnot. And you look at how they tracked those numbers and
Yeah.
what was good for them. You look at football now and going, oh my gosh, how am I going to get
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah. And I don't think you can anymore. You're like,
Yeah,
yeah, Michigan's the exception, but you look at it and you go, no, I don't think I can do that.
the talent disparity of the top end of people may allow yourself to be in that situation, but that's just not feasible for everybody. Is how do you put yourself in a situation to, again, your side of the scoreboard looks better than theirs at the end of the day. I'm gonna limit points. That's the goal.
You want to limit points, play fast, and tackle. Like it's pretty simple. Like
Yep,
it's
absolutely. Keep the ball in front of us, play fast, put the kids in situations to go make the play. And if they can't make the play, that's why you recruit. You got to win this time of year to win in August to hopefully December. If you don't win from now until February 7th, what are we doing?
yeah, yeah,
There-
yeah,
There's a there's a lot of wins and losses happening right now behind the scenes outside of a missed tackle. You're missing those tackles today if you're not doing your job and picking up the phone.
and that mindset I would assume comes from you grinding it out with so many different places and starting as a GA.
Yeah,
That type of mindset comes from that.
yeah. I think when you're a young coach, you like to think you can coach everybody into being my first All-American
Yeah,
and whatnot. Some people got that ability to do it or not.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
skill set at most levels that fits that mold and whatnot, and you want to recruit to it.
right.
You hope the character matches that, but not you want to coach people to be their best, and
Hmm.
you got to have more people that can develop into being the best than the other teams if you want to win. So that's
Right.
the name. It's always the name of the game is who are the people running the X's and O's because everything looks good until Mitch Lepke's in the hole for a one-on-one tackle.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what people don't know about college coaches. They're always like, why are they in the office 16 hours? Well, there's all that stuff that you guys have to do with that. And they don't
Yeah,
see that. They don't know.
yeah. Hey, the coach with the pen in the hand, last wins. Well, the coach who is sitting there playing video games with guys this time of night during recruiting wins too. I feel like I'm getting old saying this now. Like I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I got kids, man. I'm getting up early in the morning.
Yeah.
I've had young coaches that are up all night playing video games with the guys they're recruiting. While
Yeah.
while I'm sleeping, they're just hanging out and getting to know these kids, and it's a really unique advantage. And
Yeah.
like, man, that's really cool. Maybe part of your GA stipend in the future as a head coach someday, Mitch, is, hey, here's $300. Go buy a system with Xbox Live, and your job's to your job's to coach the linebackers and recruit your face off on Xbox all night long.
Yeah. Go play some Fortnite or whatever.
Yeah, I've heard of kids committing to the coaches now on video games and whatnot. Well,
Yeah.
coach, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is I'm going to beat you a lot more on this game when I'm at your school over the next 4 years. I'm like, the good news is you're going to see me every day.
Yeah. 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 That's funny being on Twitch on Fortnite. Yeah, I'll come to your school.
Yeah, like, my Xbox has been gathering dust since 2018, man. I can't do it anymore.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you spending almost an hour with me. I didn't know
Yeah,
it was almost an hour. It just flew by. And especially during recruiting season, I appreciate you spending time taking away from
yeah,
recruiting to talk to me.
absolutely. Anything to grow the game and to maybe give someone else some insight into what it's like to survive college football, because I don't think anyone thrives. I think you survive and you chase to
Mhm.
help people. If you're
Yep.
not in this to serve, no matter what level you're at, we're here for young people, and that needs to be the thing that keeps people going. So if anyone can
Yep.
take something from this conversation, I'm all for it. There's no right, wrong way to make it. As long as we're here to serve the young people, that's all that matters to me.
Yep. Couldn't say it better myself.